You are about to feel something shift. Not around you, within you. Because God is lifting the veil. And what has been hidden from your heart, what has been buried under years of silence, what has festered beneath someone else's guilt, is rising. This is your moment of revelation. And God says, do not ignore this message. This is not imagination. This is not emotion. This is the moment where the truth comes trembling into the light. There is a person. Someone tied to you by blood, memory, or soul. Someone who once meant the world to you. And right now, they are dying inside. Not from illness. Not from age. But from stress. The kind that comes from carrying a secret for too long. The kind that eats at the soul and breaks the body slowly. They are holding something they were never meant to carry alone. A truth that was never meant to be hidden this long. And what's worse, you are the one it was hidden from. God says. You don't even realize the weight you've been walking under. Because the lie was so loud. Because the silence lasted so long. Because the people who knew the truth, stayed quiet. But heaven has seen it all. And now, the truth is breaking through. They are suffering behind closed doors. Weeping into pillows soaked in regret. Suffocating under the pressure of what they never had the courage to say. They wanted to tell you. They started to. But they backed away each time. Out of fear. Out of shame. Out of guilt. They thought they were protecting you. But what they didn't realize was. Silence became your cage. Confusion became your shadow. And a lie became your identity. There was a moment, long ago, when everything could have changed. One conversation. One confession. One brave breath. But they held it in. And now. Their body is breaking under the weight. Their soul is cracking beneath the pressure. Their spirit is crying out through this message. They've seen you walk through life, strong but tired. Smiling but distant. Giving your all while feeling like not enough. And it breaks them. Because you don't know. You don't know that the pain you carry was never meant to be yours. You've blamed yourself. You've questioned your worth. You've rewritten your story with shame as the author. But beloved, you were not the failure. You were the forsaken. Not by God, but by those who feared the truth. The person who is suffering right now, they loved you. They still do. They didn't leave because you were unworthy. They left because the truth made them unworthy. They couldn't face what you deserved. So they said nothing. But now their health is failing. Their soul is crying. And their spirit is reaching for you through this message. God says, the time for hiding has ended. The silence is no longer sacred, it is sickness. And I am calling forth the truth now, not to destroy, but to deliver. You've wondered, why do I feel this sadness I can't name? Why do I sense grief but have no event to match it? Why does my soul ache like it knows something my mind can't grasp? Because it does. Your spirit has always known. Your tears were not baseless. Your chest didn't tighten for no reason. Your dreams, your memories, your intuition. They were not random. They were revelations. And now the truth is rising. Not through confrontation, but through this message. This is the divine whisper sent to reach you because time is running out. They may not get the courage to say it face to face. They may never write the letter they've rewritten in their mind 1,000 times. But God will not let them die with this truth trapped inside. So He is telling you now. You were not the one who failed. You were not the one who drove them away. You were not the one too much, too loud, too broken. You were the one who was abandoned by truth. And now truth comes to you, not to crush you, but to free you. The person who is suffering, their body is tired. Their stress is screaming in places medicine can't reach. They are praying you'll understand, praying that somehow your heart will open to what your mind was never told. Because they know, you can't heal from what you were never allowed to see. And the time for sight has come. This is not the end. This is the beginning. The truth will hurt. But it will also heal. You are being called into clarity. Into peace. Into restoration. God says, you have carried confusion for too long. Now you will carry truth. And from that truth will rise the kind of healing that shakes generations free. You are not imagining the ache. You are awakening. This is the start of your deliverance. You are no longer the secret. You are the story heaven is now writing in light. There is a sacred tension in the air. Not the kind that paralyzes, but the kind that prepares you for what's about to be revealed. Because what you were never told has begun to echo louder than what you were told to believe. And now, heaven is pulling back the curtain. This isn't just a revelation, it's a rescue. God says, the weight they carry is becoming unbearable. The secret they buried is now breaking their body. Their soul is imploding beneath the silence that once seemed noble, but now feels cruel. And what makes it worse you still don't know. You're still walking with the version of reality that was edited, filtered, half-spoken, crafted to protect someone's comfort instead of your healing. But now the truth is pressing. It is no longer polite. It is no longer patient. It is rising with urgency. Not to crush you, but to finally allow your soul to breathe. There is someone you once loved, trusted, or followed, who watched your spirit wither under a lie and chose to say nothing. And now they're breaking because of it. Their body is responding to the years of withheld truth. Sleepless nights. Panic attacks. Emotional distance. A slow unraveling from the inside out. Because the truth they withheld is suffocating them now. And the enemy is whispering in their ear, it's too late. But God is whispering to you, it's not. You may not recognize it yet, but the divine alignment is already happening. That ache you've been feeling, it's not just emotion. It's memory waking up. It's discernment stirring from deep within your belly. You were born with a spiritual radar, the kind that detects when something isn't right even if everyone says it is. And for years, your intuition screamed, but no one confirmed it. That was not paranoia. That was the Holy Spirit trying to prepare you. Let me tell you something heaven-shattering, you were right. You were right when you felt the room shift. You were right when someone's silence spoke louder than their words. You were right when you sensed betrayal without evidence. You were right when you mourned something that was never explained. You were never crazy. You were never broken. You were spiritually awake. And now that awareness is no longer subtle, it's undeniable. God says, you are not to chase the truth is chasing you. And that truth, it's sacred. It's costly. But it's also your inheritance. Someone close to you made a decision. And that decision changed your path. They altered something that should have never been theirs to alter. They agreed to something in silence that wounded you in ways they didn't fully grasp. And instead of telling you, instead of confessing, they buried it. But the ground is no longer holding it. Because when a truth is buried alive, it doesn't die, it waits. And now it's breaking the surface. This person, the one dying from stress, they don't hate you. They're not avoiding you out of bitterness. They're avoiding you because your presence is a reminder of what they didn't say. They loved you. They still do. But fear wrapped their heart like a vine, tight and unrelenting. They were afraid of your power, afraid of how you might rise if you knew the whole truth, afraid of what would shift if you stepped fully into your identity. So they stayed quiet. And in doing so, they surrendered your clarity in exchange for temporary control. But here's what they didn't understand: God doesn't allow His chosen ones to remain confused forever. There is a divine expiration date on every lie spoken over your life. And the expiration date has arrived. That tightness in your chest, that sudden heaviness, that recurring dream of a person, a place, or a scene you can't explain, that's not memory. That's spiritual movement. That's God unsealing what was once sealed by fear. Someone has written and rewritten a confession. Over and over again. In journals. In unsent texts. In prayers whispered between tears. But they can't bring themselves to send it. So now God is sending it another way, straight to your spirit. Through signs. Through this message. Through that one moment of clarity you couldn't shake. You are being told what they were too afraid to say. God is breaking protocol for your sake. He's releasing you from what was withheld. Not to shame them, but to heal you. Because your identity has been held hostage by a version of the past that was incomplete. And God says, no more. This is not about revenge. This is about restoration. It's not about exposing someone. It's about unburdening your soul. Because how can you walk into destiny with lies still clinging to your shoulders like dust? You were never the mistake. You were never the reason people left. You were never the one too much. You were the one kept in the dark, not because you were weak. But because your truth scared people into silence. But now the veil is lifting. Now the message is clear. Now the ache makes sense. Now the heaviness has context. Now your soul is ready to receive what was always meant to be yours, the full truth. So what do? Breathe. Grieve. Pray. Prepare. Because the confession is coming. Through words. Through actions. Through divine confirmation. And when it comes, you will not break. You will rise. The winds are shifting. The veil is thinning. The unspoken is stirring. And what once was hidden behind walls of guilt and fear is now cracking at the edges. This is the beginning of the unraveling. Not of you, but of the lie. God says, the truth is no longer waiting for permission to speak. It's bleeding through glances. It's trembling in voices. It's surfacing in the very moments meant to suppress it. There is someone whose body has become a battleground because of what they refuse to say. Their stress isn't just emotional, it's spiritual warfare made manifest. Sleeplessness. Tension in their chest. A voice that cracks for no reason. Dreams they can't control. And every one of them, a sign from heaven that time is running out. This person, they once stood at a crossroads with your name in their hands. They were entrusted with your future, or at least a piece of your identity. And instead of protecting it with truth, they chose silence. They convinced themselves it was better that way. Better for you. Better for them. Easier. But silence always demands a payment. And now their soul is in collections. They never expected you to feel it like this. They didn't expect the silence to shape your voice. To weigh down your confidence. To cause you to question your belonging in every room you walk into. But it did. And what they thought they buried in the past is still speaking in your present. And now they know it. And it's destroying them. They watch from a distance, they see the way you move, half-lit. They hear the power in your voice, and still sense the ache behind it. They feel the weight in your walk, the way your spirit carries something that should have never been placed upon you. And it haunts them. Because deep down, they always knew you would rise. They always knew your spirit was too sharp to stay in the dark forever. They always knew that one day, you'd start asking the questions no one wanted to answer. And now that day has come. Let me say this again for your soul, you were never the reason they walked away. You were never the weight they couldn't carry. You were never the storm they made you out to be. You were the one silenced. The one misrepresented. The one whose truth was inconvenient for their image or comfort. And now that silence is echoing so loudly in their spirit, they can't even function the same. They're distracted. Exhausted. Anxious. Because confession is building like a dam behind their tongue. But here's what's wild, you don't need their words to be free. You're already being set free through revelation. This message, this moment, it's your confirmation. The Holy Spirit is piecing together what you've always felt. And once God reveals something, you can no longer live as though you don't know. Yes, there are more pieces to come. Yes, someone else may still speak. Yes, a letter may arrive. Yes, a confession may burst out when you least expect it. But you're not waiting anymore. You're awakening. And every awakening comes with both grief and glory. You may grieve the time you lost in confusion. You may grieve the love you gave while being misjudged. You may grieve the memories that now feel stained with hidden motives. That grief is holy. Don't rush it. But after the grief comes clarity. And after clarity comes reclamation. You are reclaiming, your name, your identity, your voice, your narrative, your space in this world, no longer defined by what they didn't say, but by what God is now revealing. God says, I am rewriting your timeline with truth. And I'm using what others meant to hide to elevate you into purpose. You see, beloved, they thought your story was over. They thought the silence would win. They thought time would cover it all. But truth doesn't wither in darkness. It waits. It matures. It sharpens. And then it rises. That's what's happening now. The people who once held your story hostage are feeling the tremors of divine release. And the person who's breaking right now? They're breaking because heaven is knocking, louder than ever before. They're hearing God in their sleep. They're seeing your face in their dreams. They're being visited by the truth they buried in every quiet moment they try to escape. Don't be surprised if they reach out. Not with full sentences, maybe just a look. A strange message. A trembling attempt to connect. That's the crack. That's the confession pushing at the seams. You don't have to open the door fully. Just let the Holy Spirit guide your response. Because this isn't just about receiving an apology. This is about restoring your soul. And beloved, hear me clearly, the version of you that was formed in confusion is not the version that will enter your next season. You're stepping into clarity. You're stepping into identity. You're stepping into truth that heals rather than harms. So when the confession comes, whether in voice or silence, whether directly or indirectly, whether from them or from the Spirit, you'll be ready. Not to retaliate. It has begun. Not to crumble. The unraveling, but to stand in the full light of who you are. The silence that once seemed indestructible is now cracking beneath the weight of divine timing. Through you. And you're not just standing in the middle of unstoppable. You were chosen to. This isn't coincidence. This is orchestration. God says, what was once buried to protect pride is now being unearthed to release purpose. And you, beloved, are walking into clarity so powerful, even the enemy is trembling at your awakening. Let's talk about what's happening in the Spirit. Because while you've been processing emotions, heaven has been preparing vindication. The person whose body has been cracking under the stress of secrets is about to reach their breaking point. But not for destruction, for confession. This is not the kind of breaking that ruins. This is the kind of breaking that births redemption. Here's what they didn't count on, that you would grow even in the dark. That you would remain kind, even in confusion. That you would keep loving when misunderstood. That your discernment would sharpen in the fire. That your faith would stretch in the fog. But you did. And now you're about to be rewarded for every silent seed you sowed. You were gaslit by a lie. Made to question yourself. Made to shrink so others could feel comfortable in the shadows. But God never stopped watching. He saw every moment when your body knew the truth before your mind did. He saw how you carried shame that was never yours to carry. He saw you crying over pain you couldn't name. And now, He is rewriting your identity with heavenly ink. This is what exposure feels like in the kingdom, not dramatic confrontation, but divine confirmation. Not chaos, but clarity. Not revenge, but restoration. You're going to start feeling it now more than ever, conversations that feel oddly revealing. Faces that once avoided you now glance with guilt. Words that slip out of people's mouths and stop time. Dreams that bring names, places, and events together like puzzles. This is not your imagination. This is the truth arriving on schedule. That person who's been suffering in silence. They're near the edge. Their soul can no longer hold what was never meant to be hidden. The lie is choking them. Their guilt is manifesting in their body, headaches, fatigue, panic, insomnia. And all of it is divine pressure, pushing them toward the only escape that heals, truth. But this time, you won't be blindsided. You won't be confused. You won't wonder, what did I do wrong? You won't spiral like before. Because now you're walking in revelation. And when the veil tore, your vision returned. God says, I am giving you eyes to see beyond appearances. Ears to hear what isn't being said. And a heart strong enough to hold justice and mercy at the same time. What's coming next won't look like a courtroom. It will look like a confession wrapped in trembling. It may not come all at once. It may trickle in, through hints, stories, slips of truth that no longer want to be caged. And when it comes, you'll feel something shift inside of you. The ache will make sense. The timeline will align. The things you blamed yourself for will crumble under the weight of truth. And don't be surprised if others begin to feel it too. Because when one truth rises, it awakens others. The person who broke under the pressure, they weren't alone in knowing. Someone else stood silent, too. Someone else watched and didn't speak. Someone else chose safety over your clarity. And now, their silence is screaming. Let me say this to your spirit, you were never weak. You were just powerful in ways they didn't understand. They didn't know how to handle the light inside you, so they tried to dim it with doubt. They didn't know how to hold the weight of your truth, so they offered silence instead of support. But now your light is expanding. Now your truth is echoing in places they can't ignore. This is your divine vindication, but not the kind that humiliates, the kind that heals. God says, I will restore the years. I will repair what silence shattered. And I will reward what you held with honor while others held with fear. You're not just waking up, you're stepping forward. You're not just aware, you're aligned. You're not just whole, you're holy. You don't need their apology to start healing. You already have God's approval. But when their words come, if they come, they will be the final key to a door that was already opening inside you. And when that door fully opens, you won't return to the past. You'll walk into purpose. Because the truth didn't destroy you. It delivered you. And the silence didn't kill you. It trained you. And the stress they carried, it's about to be exchanged for freedom. And the person they were too afraid to face you. They healed you. The whole you. The you who no longer carries shame, but walks in light. This is the part where everything changes. Not because everything is suddenly perfect, but because everything is finally clear. The fog has lifted. The silence has shattered. The truth has found its way into the light. And so have you. The stress that once strangled the person who withheld the truth, is now loosening its grip. Not because they suddenly became strong, but because you became awakened. You didn't wait for their apology. You didn't crumble when the silence broke. You didn't collapse under the weight of the revelation. You stood. And heaven saw you. God says, this is what strength looks like in my kingdom, not rage, not revenge, but revelation embraced with peace. You could have become bitter. You could have matched silence with silence. You could have buried your spirit in blame and chosen to never trust again. But you didn't. Instead, you allowed God to walk you through the pain. You let truth cleanse the wound. You let clarity free your voice. And now you are no longer a character in someone else's narrative. You are the narrator of your own redemption. Let's speak plainly now. The person who has been suffering for so long, the one whose soul nearly broke beneath the pressure of the unspoken, they know they can't undo the past. But their soul finally exhaled. Because the truth reached you. It reached your heart. It reached your spirit. It shattered the lie that made you feel unworthy, confused, and overlooked. And in that moment, something sacred happened, your soul started breathing again. Yes, there is grief. You're allowed to mourn what could have been. You're allowed to acknowledge the years spent walking in shadows. You're allowed to say, I deserve to know. Because you did. But you're also allowed to say, I'm not staying in the pain. You're not walking in circles anymore. You're walking in freedom. No more second-guessing your intuition. No more apologizing for asking too many questions. No more shrinking yourself to make others feel safe in their lies. This is your emergence. This is your redefinition. This is the version of you they never expected to survive, the version that was born in truth. And what about them? What about the one who carried the secret until it almost killed them? They may never say the words out loud. They may never fully apologize. They may weep in silence until their final breath. But God says, that's not your burden to carry. I will deal with their healing. You focus on yours. Because the truth is not a weapon, it's a key. And it's unlocked the part of you that was always divine. The part that knew you were meant for more. The part that could sense when rooms weren't safe. The part that refused to forget what your spirit remembered. Now you walk differently. Not with fear, but with fire. Not with confusion, but with conviction. Not with shame, but with authority. Because when you survive the silence, you gain something most people never do, holy discernment. You see through the fake. You hear what isn't said. You feel what others try to hide. And that's not a curse. That's your calling. You were never too sensitive. You were never too much. You were never too suspicious. You were spiritually awake in a world addicted to denial. And now, you are unapologetically aligned with heaven's truth. Let's talk about what's next. Because you are not standing in the ruins. You are standing in the rebuild. God is bringing people into your life who tell the truth the first time. Who speak light into your identity. Who don't ask you to be smaller just so they can feel bigger. He is bringing connections that are rooted in authenticity, love without conditions, and conversations that don't trigger old wounds. Because the one who lied couldn't stop your calling. The one who withheld couldn't cancel your promise. You are still on course. And you are further along than you think. God says. Now that you know the truth, live like you're free. Love like you're healed. Walk like you've seen what others refuse to admit. Forgive them if God leads you. Let go of bitterness so you can make room for joy. Honor the pain, but don't live in it. Celebrate your resilience. Speak your truth. And above all, never again shrink in the presence of silence. You are the voice now. You are the testimony now. You are the light now. The truth didn't destroy you. It revealed who you really were all along. And the one who broke under the silence, they may never get the words out. But heaven got them to you another way. And you heard them. And you answered. And now, you are free. You are whole. You are rising. Because when the truth comes to light, so do the ones it was meant to heal.